the unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth, the unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth, the unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with, even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth.
In the Fukanzazengi, it says, put aside the intellectual practice of investigating words and chasing phrases, and learn to take the backward step that turns the light and shines it inward. Body and mind of themselves will drop away and your original face will manifest. If you want to realize such, get to work on such right now.
Daigaku-san, would you say something about
I will. Our Honorable Abbot, Dokai, is not feeling well today. There he is. He's the one with the headphones on. And I thought that was him, but I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was a happy Buddha, but he claims that he's not feeling well today. And someone came to me after lunch and said, would you give the talk today? And I couldn't say no. I could have said, well, why don't you ask Rayrin? But if it had been up to me, I would have said, let's skip the talk tonight. This is the last night of the last complete day of Sesshin, when our samadhi power is at its highest and people are really closest to their zazen. And I think that would have been fine, but no, here I am. I'm looking through my notes to see if there might be something I haven't said yet. But as I said on the first night, I would encourage you to stay with your zazen. And it's fine to listen to what I'm saying, but really just stay with your zazen and let those words I say go in one ear and out the other. In Zen practice, we're often told to give up the seeking mind. That's the mind that's always projecting something that we want or expect in the future. We're also told not to wait for enlightenment. And yet, it often happens that we're in a hurry to reach the goal, to get the result. I think we all tend to be like this. Everybody would like to be number one, if they could, or number two, number three, and so on. Nobody wants to be the last person. This even happened in the monastery, where people are not supposed to be competitive, but sometimes we would hear, oh, that's the Roshi's attendant. So he or she must be closer to the way. Or that person is working on that kind of koan and so on. But actually, this kind of comparison is really a mistake. And I would say with regard to Doksan as well, we were often cautioned, my teacher would caution us, not to compare notes from Doksan with other people. Everybody is unique. Roshi would say to one person, white is black. And to another person, he might say white is white. So if people were to compare, that would lead to confusion, which is really an undesirable thing. So I would encourage you people as well, really to keep your practice as your practice. We don't need to look at other people and compare ourselves with other people. The other day, Reirin was speaking about a text called Bendowa, one of the seminal texts by Dogen. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. And in Bendowa, as Reirin was mentioning, Dogen speaks about his personal quest, his search for the Dharma. And in that work, there is this quotation. You should know that for a Buddhist, it isn't a matter of discussing and debating the inferiority or superiority of someone's teaching or understanding. The problem is the authenticity of practice right now. So Dogen Zanji is saying it's not a matter of past experience. I had, 20 years ago I had this great experience. Or I had this great teacher, I had this darshan with this great teacher. No. Experience, by definition, is something past. Our practice isn't about yesterday or tomorrow. The question is, how are we practicing right now? Are we really one with Zazen now? If not, then we're not doing Sesshin. In actual fact, it's probably correct to say that we don't know whether a teaching is shallow or deep, and so on. I think many of you know the Japanese word for mind, kokoro. Kokoro. Japanese people are fond of wordplay. So out of kokoro, they have a word korokoro, korokoro, which describes a ball that's rolling. Imagine a ball just rolling across the floor. Korokoro, korokoro. It's always moving. And this is a description of the mind. So kokoro, mind, heart, becomes korokoro, korokoro, this thing that's always changing. And that's the function of the mind. I often speak about, in Buddhism, we say there are 6 sense functions. In the West, we only have 5, right? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. In Buddhism, thinking is also considered to be a sense function. But we often make the mistake of trying to stop thinking. In fact, many people think of Zazen as a matter of stopping thinking, but this is only to use our own thought to try and stop the mind. This is a mistake. If we are able to let these six sense functions work automatically, naturally, spontaneously, that would be a Buddha. And that's relatively easy for us to do with the five we have in the West: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. If the eyes are open, we can see anything that's in front of them. If I put my hand up like this, you can see it. If I put it down, it's gone. We don't have to intend to see or learn how to see. In fact, we don't really know how that happens. We explain optic nerves and this and that and the other and so on, but we really don't know how that happens. That's the same with the ear. Regardless of what you were thinking when I clapped my hands, everybody heard that clap. Everything works automatically, and then it's gone. That sound does not remain in your ear. We would have a huge amount of difficulty in our life if every sound we heard got clogged in the ear and we had to somehow take it out so the next one could come in. No, it's gone in an instant. But that is happening with the mind as well. These other senses are on the outside of our face, but the mind is somewhere inside. And then, on top of that, we try and stop thinking. The natural function of the mind is to think. Koro, 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 koro. It's constantly moving. Furthermore, we can only think one thought at a time. It's not possible to think, I like that and I don't like that at the same time. It's either one or the other. Or it might be neutral. You might not care about it. But that one thought has to disappear before the next one arises. The thing is that stream of consciousness is happening so quickly that it seems like we can think two or three things at the same time. But we are in the habit of thinking, that thought was a delusion. I've got to get rid of that one. That one's a desire. I've got to get rid of that one too. And so we pick and choose which thoughts we like and which thoughts we don't like. And so in Zen practice, we are taught to leave the mind as it is. Let thought come and go as it is. It's not me who's thinking. Those thoughts simply arise and disappear. And yet this is very, very difficult for us to do. And unavoidably, we are asked in Zen practice, it really would be best not to do this, but we're asked to stay with a method. Just sitting. Does a dog have Buddha nature? Moo. Or the breath, and so on. This is really to carry something extra. But in order to be free, in order for us to really be able to let thought come and go, it's necessary for us to grind up consciousness by means of consciousness. So this question, Dogen Senji was saying, about the authenticity of practice. That's what counts. It's not a matter of is this teaching is better or that teacher is better. What is genuine practice? Now, my teacher was fond of saying that the very best way to sit, just let go of everything and warm the zafu. As Dogen Zenji clearly says in the Fukanzazengi, give up any intention of becoming a Buddha. And that in itself is the practice of a Buddha. Nothing to seek and nothing to throw away. Really, that ability to leave things be as they are. Though we shouldn't judge whether our zazen is good or bad. Again, that comes in the Fukanzazengi. It's because my teacher used to use the word monitor. We monitor our zazen. It's as if there is somebody outside of us is looking at us over our shoulder. Oh, now I'm sitting well. Oh, now I'm not sitting well. And so on. But this is to be separate from zazen, to judge it, to look at it. That's obviously two things. So, once again, I say we shouldn't look for results. Don't measure yourself against other people. Just settle into your zazen. Let go of everything. There is a very famous Rinzai master. No longer alive. I mean, he was almost contemporary with Dogen, Daito Kokushi. And one of the few things he left behind was a statement, constantly apply yourselves to the study of the unthinkable. The unthinkable. This is a place where reason cannot enter in. And this is our life itself. We don't realize that. But in fact, there is no self. We can only think of the past and the future. We understand that, but it isn't possible to hold on to something that's happened in the past. We can take all the photos we want, but whatever we think about the past, even if we're looking at those photos, that's taking place now. And yet we often worry about what happened previously. We complain. In this way, Daito is telling us we're using reason, we're using thought. And over again we're taught in Zen practice that the emphasis is the moment now. That's what's important. As Dogen Zenji cautions us in the Fukanzazengi, don't be proud of your understanding. Pride is to compare ourselves with somebody else. I know more than she does. Or I can do this better than he does. No. In the moment now, it's not possible to compare. And so we are taught to be content with the way things are, to be able to dwell peacefully in the moment now. This is a condition where there is nothing other. I'm very fond of a short Japanese poem. 4 lines. It goes like this. This very moment, just think of only this. The past cannot return. The future cannot be known. In a way, this really describes Zen practice, to keep our focus on what we're doing in the moment now. The past is gone. We can't hold on to it, nor can we change it. The future is unknown. Things often don't go the way we want them to, even though we can spend a lot of time anxious about what might happen. Zazen is to bring our attention to the moment now. In fact, there is only the moment now. Whatever we think about the past or whatever we think about the future is always happening right now. In the Fukanzazengi, it says, we often speak of the Buddha's 6 years of upright sitting, of Bodhidharma's 9 years facing a wall. But nobody is born with the aspiration to seek for the way of Buddha. Everybody has sought the way through hardship and suffering. I sometimes think we have to be grateful for that hardship. Otherwise, we wouldn't be compelled to seek the way. And yet, people often look for the easy way. And maybe this Zoom session this year has been the easy way. I don't know. I was thinking, no, that would be the hard way for me. But I've been hearing from some people that it's worked out just fine. But anyway, we quickly want to understand. If we could take a pill and have Satori, people would want to buy that. But that's not possible. People do not want to do what's difficult. But thankfully, we have a group of people here at Hokyoji, willing to do Sesshin, willing to do the hard practice. Not to say it hasn't been hard at home. But over and over again, we're taught not to be in a hurry to reach the goal. And the reason is we say the result is already here. The cause is already the result, which is already the next cause. It's always here. Not knowing, confusion, delusions, these are the results. There's no substance to them. If we don't deal with them, if we don't try and get rid of them, they'll go away by themselves. Everything is impermanent. We're anxious, so we want to find peace of mind. But in Zen, we're taught, leave anxiety as it is. That is peace of mind. But we have this habit, very strong habit, of wanting to deal with things, to manipulate things. And this is what causes our suffering. In the Soto sect, we say that practice and realization are one. We practice within realization. We practice within awakening. We don't know that, but we have that faith. To keep our attention now, to let our practice ripen, surely that fruit will fall. And I want to say, it may seem to be a big contradiction when I say, hold on to a method. It's true, that's extra. But this is unavoidable. There's no other way to grind up consciousness than by means of consciousness, by holding on to that method. We say that the Dharma belongs to those people who have attained it. And in order for us to attain it, we follow the teachings of the Buddhas and ancestors so that we can do it ourselves. It does not belong to the Buddha. The Dharma does not belong to the Buddha. It simply was, he was the first one to awaken to it. So really sit firmly. We have a little bit of time remaining today, and just to send you off, allow me to read one more of my teacher's teachings. He says it really very well. And this is my teacher speaking here. I often speak about things not existing, that there is nothing. This is a condition where things are one. I often say, be one with something. Be one with Zazen, for example. But when something is one, it isn't possible to know that. There's no way that one thing can know itself. It's because you see one thing as two things that dualistic consciousness arises. Delusion, suffering, delusive passions, and all kinds of problems arise. That's the teaching of Buddha. But it isn't a matter of knowing this. You've heard the teaching, and by means of practice, you must think this way. One mistake, though, is to think that you are doing practice. You are not doing Buddhist practice. True practice begins when you have forgotten the self. That's the ego. In Buddhist practice, in Zen practice, it is really in the midst of nothingness that you can practice. As quickly as possible, let go of using shikantaza or koan practice or any kind of other method, and be able to practice where there is nothing. That's Buddhist practice. The teaching of the Buddhas and ancestors arises from a place where there is nothing. If we try and understand these teachings intellectually, it is not possible. But it is unavoidable that we use these things which we do not understand and practice by grinding up, not knowing, as it is. If we don't do it like that, we will not be able to practice where there is nothing. This is why Satori or Kensho are only part of the way. Satori and Kensho and forgetting the self, they're all illusions. But if you do not go through that point, you won't understand real Buddhist practice. Dogen Zenji said, and again this comes from Bendowa, this Dharma is amply present in every person. Everybody has the Dharma. But without practice, that Dharma isn't manifested. Without realization, that Dharma isn't attained, and so it's useless. As I said before, Be one with sitting, and then forget sitting. I ask you to do that. Those might seem difficult words, I don't know, but the last thing I say here is that we have a word, samadhi, which we've taken from Sanskrit. Samadhi is an expression of being one with something. Whether you're playing golf or cooking a meal or on the telephone with a friend, it's to be one with it. We live within samadhi. And as Roshi is saying here, it isn't possible for one thing to know itself. So, I leave you with this teaching, that if you know you're in samadhi, you're outside of it. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for being part of this Zoom session, a first for Hokyoji. I hope it's the last, but who knows? We don't know what the future brings. Maybe Dokai will think this was a great idea and continue it. Anyway, we have still some more time in Sesshin. Please be a samadhi of Zazen.
May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless, I vow to freedom. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to realize it. Beings are numberless, I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable,